In today's episode of Railers Play, sustainability. What happens when sustainability loses momentum? Can the green transition boost security and competitiveness? Why is electrification moving so slowly? Stick around for this interview to learn more. Hi, sustainability is no doubt under pressure. Since Donald Trump returned to the White House, the tone around sustainability has clearly shifted. At the same time, we see massive investments in rearmament and AI. So what does this mean for countries, companies, and for the green transition? To explore this, I'm joined by three very interesting guests. Welcome to Railers Play, Fredrik Nilsén, Head of Sustainability at Scania.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here. Åsa Pettersson, CEO of Energiföretagen.
Yes,
welcome.
Thank you.
And our own Malin Ljung-Eiborn, Head of Sustainability here at Railers.
Hi.
All right, let's begin with you, Fredrik. Tell us a bit about your role as Head of Sustainability at Scania.
A fantastic role, right? Yeah. Having the opportunity to work at Scania, for those who don't know about Scania, a global manufacturer of heavy-duty vehicles, buses, trucks, bases here in Sweden, Södertälje, but also with manufacturing in Brazil, but also now in China, Rugao. So sustainability matters a lot. It's at the center of our purpose. We already in 2016, after the Paris Agreement, we said that we're here to drive the shift, not only to follow, but to drive the shift towards sustainable transport system.
And Åsa, what's the mission of Energiföretagen?
Well, we are the industry association for energy companies in Sweden. So that means energy producers, distributors, retailers of heat and electricity. So it's the whole energy system. I have around 500 members, and it's my honor to represent the energy system in Sweden. So our mission is really to provide sustainable energy for everybody. That is our actually vision of the organization, and we already have a fantastic position here as Sweden, because we have a 99% fossil-free electricity production and a renewable heat production based on renewables and also waste energy. So that is a fantastic position for Sweden as a country, and our role from the energy sector is really to be the enabler of the transition to sustainability for society.
Nice to hear. And Malin, as a consultancy firm, Railers work with a lot of different clients. Does that mean that you work both with sustainability issues for our clients and for Railers' own goals?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. My role is to lead the sustainability work, both internally and towards customers. So internally, we want to be a role model, of course, since we are advising our clients on how to be in the forefront of transformation towards a sustainable future. Then we need to be a role model, and we are quite a big company, so it comes with big responsibility. And we have our own sustainable business strategy at the center of what we do. So making sure that how we work internally also is mirrored towards our clients.
That was an introduction of you all, but we are clearly in a different landscape now. That's why I've invited you to Railers Play. Sustainability doesn't seem to dominate the agenda the way it did a couple of years ago. How are you experiencing this shift, Fredrik?
I don't really know if I agree, but obviously I think we can see or look back on almost like a decade of promises, a decade of awareness building, mobilization, and obviously fueled by the Paris Agreement. But I also think that we have come into a situation where there is a lot of uncertainty in the world. There are many other big topics, many geopolitical topics. So I think it has now proved that sustainability efforts, in a sense, at the heart of corporate strategy, they need to live their own life, in a sense. They need to stand on their own legs. We don't have the same, so to say, tailwind anymore as we have had for a couple of years. But on the other hand, then you need to justify the investments or the actions that you take in the companies for really strong reasons, and they have to compete with other types of investments and efforts within the companies. So I think it's not only bad in a sense that they need to, because then you find yourself in situations where you really do the things that you really need to do, short term and long term. On the other hand, obviously, it's harder to get the attention externally when there are so many other subjects. And I think the second thing we conclude is that running a company, developing a company doesn't become easier. Now we know that we need to handle climate matters, biodiversity, or not creating new problems while solving others in the supply chain around materials, mining, etc. But in fact also geopolitics, right? So running a company today or developing a company is immensely complex. And obviously then you need to be really strong in managing your company and taking all of those aspects in. So it's a new era for sure. It's not an era of promises, but rather an era of getting the job done.
Åsa, do we have to fight more for sustainability issues nowadays?
I mean, it's not on the top of the agenda anymore. I mean, that I can agree, really. But I mean, and in this very insecure environment that we have today in the world, I mean, security has really raised to the top of the agenda, very closely followed by competitiveness. But still, I mean, climate and sustainability is part of the same puzzle, and partly the question how to reach the answer to security, competitiveness is the same as for climate. So in that sense, I mean, that's really my experience. You have to use, of course, it's a very worrisome time to live in. So we do have to focus on security. We really do. I mean, for energy companies, this is, it's about resilience of the whole energy system and robustness to be able to deliver energy also during hybrid or even war times. I mean, this is extremely serious. At the same time, what we saw after the Russian invasion of Ukraine was a real energy crisis. I mean, the war, the geopolitical situation is a lot about energy. So when Russia cut the gas supply to Europe, what happened? Well, we got very high energy prices in Europe, and Europe kind of woke up and realized we cannot no longer depend on Russian gas. Now, I mean, last week or this weekend, we have a new war in the Middle East. What happened? Gas supply is cut from the Middle East. What happens again in Europe? Gas prices go up. Not yet to the same extent. We should be very aware of that. We're not at all in the same. But gas prices have risen very sharply during this week. And again, this is because of the dependency on fossil fuels. Yeah. So, of course, increasing our energy independence in Europe, no longer being dependent on fossil fuels, is the answer to both the security and the competitiveness, because it's cheaper to produce energy with renewables, nuclear. I mean, to base our own independent or domestic energy system in Europe together, also with interconnectors and helping each other cross-border, that will create a much safer, resilient and more competitive energy system for Europe, while also delivering on climate change. I mean, this is all part of the same puzzle. So the answer is really the same, even though the question has changed fundamentally. And that is, of course, how we have to also work with this now, ranking security at the top.
Malin, do you have to compete with AI questions and rearmament questions nowadays?
Oh, in my work? Yeah. No, I don't think so. I mean, I totally agree with you, because to be competitive now, we need to also have a sustainable mindset. Make sure that we can deliver on climate change and climate adaptation, and also in the face of crisis and all of that. So be less dependent on fossil fuels and so on. Everybody knows that, and we all need to keep working with it, even if it's not top of the agenda. So it's kind of obvious for everyone to keep on doing it, even if we don't talk about it as much.
That's the global picture. Let's zoom in on Sweden for a minute or two. This autumn there will be an election, and when the voters are asked to list the most important election issues, sustainability is not included, at least not on the top 5. What are your thoughts on that, Fredrik?
I would still, just as we have said already here, there are so many topics to compete with, but they are all integrated in building your future in a sense. But I would still say that the transition towards a more sustainable society, and in our industry, to drive the shift towards a sustainable transport system, requires a system, requires politicians, requires policy development, requires corporates, requires customers, transport buyers. And nowadays, it's really hard to talk about climate, for example. You can talk about competitiveness. And obviously, the world that we're trying to create will be a more sustainable one. So the competitiveness will come from that, from a society that is more, in a sense, wealthy in a way, right? And be better. But what I'm saying is that there has been a lack, and there is even more lack right now from politicians in putting the policies in place that can turn the system. And for us, yes, the enabling conditions around charging infrastructure, the enough capacity at the electricity grid at the right time, at the right point, but also for us, we're selling trucks to corporates. And corporates, they need to survive. So finances are central. So if they invest in a vehicle, they need to have orders and getting paid for the work that they do. And today, obviously, the fossil fuel-driven vehicles out there, it's way cheaper to go that road instead of going the electrical road. So there isn't a parity there, and the only one that can change that are politicians. And right now, it's not the political topic to be driven.
But Scania has invested heavily in electrification. At the same time, some competitors are delaying their targets or scaling back ambitions in this area. How does that affect Scania?
No, but I think what we should remember here is that the heavy-duty vehicle sector as such, we're sticking tight to the targets, but what we're trying to see is how can we push the enabling conditions in society, like the grid, charging infrastructure, and the TCO parity for our customers out there. And obviously, we had hoped for a stronger and faster transition that we haven't seen. So we had higher ambitions. I think we had 602 electrical vehicles sold in the last year. We were aiming for thousands, if you asked the question a couple of years ago. So with that said, we are not satisfied.
Are you staying on course, though?
We're staying on course because in a sense, in a company, you put in funds and you invest funds. And the faster you're able to capitalize on those investments, the better it is, right? And for a company like Scania, we need to get the volumes up. The problem today is that if we look across Europe today, around 2% of the heavy-duty vehicles sold in Europe are electrical, 2%. But on the other hand, if we look into China, we talk 28%. So I think it's important to come back to the question, how do we build a competitive Europe? And Sweden tomorrow, where we can create jobs and also have a welfare system.
So do you mean that the politicians need to step up in this area?
For sure, I believe so.
All right. Vad kul att du tittar på Railers Play. Blir väldigt glad för det. Och ett sätt för dig att hålla dig uppdaterad när nya avsnitt kommer, det är att prenumerera. Gå in och prenumerera här. Och kommentera gärna också. Och sprid intervjun till dina kompisar så blir vi ännu gladare. Förresten, visste du att vi också finns som podcast? Och då heter vi Nytänkarna. Kan vara bra att veta. Nu ska du få gå tillbaka till intervjun. Åsa, what do you say about the voters list here, priority list? Is that depressing to see?
No, but I think
natural?
it's a lot about the short term and the long term, and the here and now, and basically about costs. I mean, at election times, that's what you see. It's all about my living conditions, and I think here the transition has in some way. I mean, it's experienced as it costly and a little bit frightening in that sense. And I think here we have a responsibility to talk about that, all of us, and also the politicians, as a transition, because the transition is always, but I mean, at the end of the day, electrifying is more energy efficient than using fossil fuel, and it will be cheaper. Once you have done the shift, it will be cheaper than the fossil fuels. So here, of course, it is about pushing the infrastructure, really, building the grids that we need, and here the politicians need to focus. But that is, of course, in election times difficult to push, to have a long-term plan how to invest in our infrastructure. But on the other hand, I say I'm happy if energy is not at the top of the election agenda, because then we get this very heated debate on energy topics and issues. So I'm happy if we can keep that dialogue a little bit more solutions oriented, because actually policy kind of agree in a lot of the energy policy issues, but when you have to create a conflict, for example in election times, then you enhance these splits, and it's not easier for us to get the long-term stable investments conditions that we need to support Fredrik and all other companies that want to do the transition, because building out grids, it's a really long-term project. It takes 7 to 10 years with permitting processes, and here is a whole agenda how to speed that up and to make sure it happens. And of course also investing in energy production. I mean, that's for investment cycles of 20, 30, 40 years. So we need really stable conditions to be able to do that. Yes, I think the politicians really need to focus on it long-term, and also be a bit more brave to talk about the transition as something positive in the long term.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I mean, from the political side, to be the brave, optimistic, guarantee for a good future, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, to be more positive than the everyday person who is taking care of their home and so on. So politicians need to step up, I would say, in that respect.
But I think just to echo the long-termism, the circumstances where you as corporates can plan, make investments and look into the future. Every agenda that goes back and forth creates even more difficulties. Geopolitics is always, hard to understand where they're going, right? But then on top of that, if we have then a political system with policies and changes in incentives, etc., that shifts every year.
We need long-term conditions.
That's a really good thing if you run a company, for sure.
And also, I mean, adding to that, I think because we've been having a discussion on the climate targets, both on European level and on the Swedish level. So once you have the political targets in place, it creates a lot of uncertainty if you start discussing to change them. I mean, that's in a way that what happened regarding the cars, not the heavy-duty vehicles, but on the car side when they started changing.
Great, you're one of the few that make the difference. Because you also have a background.
I do have a background at Scania, yes. No, but so I mean that of course creates uncertainty for the front runners, the one that have invested and really are believing in the political target, because we also need to remember that the climate transition is policy driven.
So if I correct me if I'm wrong, but you see that politicians from both sides, from different sides, they need to agree on long-term conditions.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
But and I mean, now we tend to talk a little bit about Sweden here, the current situation here. But then we have to remember that we have the EU as our home market, and the EU still has really strong policy on sustainability in all sorts of topics within sustainability, and on climate, of course, still very ambitious agenda. That I think that companies, I mean, all of us companies in this space have set ambitious climate target, for example, if we talk about the climate here. And we have an agenda and we have an action plan to go there. So, of course, then as long as policy on EU level stands, I think we are on a good path.
Can I build on that?
Yeah, of course.
Because I agree with you. Europe is still, if we talk about policy, a little bit of a front runner. But what we are seeing is that also other parts of the world is running in that direction. Not at least China.
Yeah.
There is a it's a carbon mechanism that come into place there as well. Also in Brazil, it's coming. And if you take Brazil market, super important for us at Scania. But what we're seeing in Europe is that you have the Commission that is trying to continue doing that work in that direction, which is great.
Yeah.
But all proposals that come from the Commission, they need to be run into the Parliament, also to be negotiated and agreed in a sense. And the Parliament is, there we have the people in a sense, right? And right now, it's super hard to get those policies that we have been concluding to get implemented in the countries. So I would say that the application of the policies are way too slow. And on top of that, the new policies that are coming from the Commission are really hard to anchor in the, so to say, the democratic system of EU. So it is challenging right now.
Because focus is elsewhere.
Yeah. Åsa, I was thinking, the AI expansion. We need more energy sources. We see that in the US right now. It's not only drill, baby, drill. They are also interested in new nuclear and solar power and windmills and so on. So I think that's also a factor here, that the AI is taking a lot of space, a lot of energy, and that's also driven by this, not only the green transition. Do you agree?
Definitely. We see that also here in Sweden.
Yeah.
We have a lot of requests from data centers and AI companies that want to establish themselves here because of both the conditions that we have the fossil-free electricity, because they were interested in that, and because it's colder here, so you don't need as much cooling of the data centers. I think this is very interesting, because also we're in a situation here due to all these uncertainties and security like that we've been talking about. We also see that demand is not really taking off. We've been planning for a doubling of the energy system in Sweden, or the electricity system in Sweden, until 2045 to reach our climate targets. But we're still waiting to see when that demand is really hitting.
Yeah.
And of course, then it's very interesting with these data centers coming in now and that are ready to invest.
So that
then we need to make sure,
that
we need to make sure that the energy system then actually grows, so we can support both that and the industry transition.
Yeah.
Because it cannot be either or. It has to, it has to be both actually.
Yeah. So AI can create a energy boost.
Yeah, because
and
they
can fasten the green transition.
Yeah, but by coming in now with demanding, if we then build out the system to be able to support also the industry transition, yes, definitely.
Yeah. All right. We are now entering a period of significant rearmament. Do you think sustainability can play a central role there as well?
But coming back to your argument, Åsa, when you develop your companies now and tomorrow, you need to take both aspects or all aspects into account, right? So if you're building for resilience due to geopolitical challenges or security reasons, you also need to apply the layer on decarbonization, because suddenly you find yourself in a better situation where you're more competitive.
Green steel in your trucks?
Yeah,
perhaps.
No, but I think it was Cristina Figueras that a couple of years ago said that we need to learn as humanity to walk and chew the chewing gum at the same time. And I think that is where we are right now. There are many aspects to keep on your radar while making decisions. And right now, for sure, security matters are at the core of that. But for us as a company, it kind of leads to resilience matters, right? We have hard times getting our components into our production, maybe, or for that sake, get the vehicles out to our customers in specific countries. So it kind of disrupts our business.
But as I said, do you think sustainability issues like green steel, for example, can play a big part in building your trucks in the future?
I think the answer is yes. But I think just to explain, when we're shifting from fossil fuels over to electrical, the relative part of emissions in our value chain will go into the product. Today, 97% of the emissions come from when our customer run the vehicle. But when shifting, it's all about the embedded carbon in. And there we have the steel, as you said, but also aluminum, cast iron, and batteries. They constitute 80% of the total carbon emissions from the product. So it's key.
Yeah.
But I think we enter into interesting discussions here also with the rearmament and
Yeah.
the focus on the armed forces also in Sweden and building up that capacity, because of course we don't have an electrified transport system, and an electrified transport system can also be more vulnerable. So this where there are also opportunities, for example, which a lot of my members that run their heating plants on biofuels, there are plans to capture the biofuels and make sustainable e-fuels, for example. And then again, we have a domestic product that we can supply also our own armed forces with sustainable biofuels produced in Sweden in our own system. So I think there are also opportunities for sustainability, because otherwise we we have a dependency on importing fossil fuels also for running the army's vehicles, right?
Yeah.
So here there are opportunities also of shifting, and I think that is very interesting because we cannot electrify everything at the same time, even though transport system should be electrified, of course. So sustainable e-fuels is a very interesting opportunity in that sense, also combined with the CCS technology, where you capture CO2 from your biomass plant for a CO2 actually neutral production.
Malin, sustainability isn't just about doing the right thing, it's also about competitiveness and profitability, of course. How do you see the business case for sustainability evolving in these circumstances?
I think for most companies nowadays, competitiveness and sustainability are the same, pretty much. For us at least, I can say that, the reason why we have sustainability at the heart of our business strategy is that it's existential. If we don't have the right skills in our company to support the transformation, then we will be out of work in 5 years. Of course, it's as important.
Åsa, before we go, despite the headwinds right now, you still sound kind of optimistic about this issue. All three of you.
Yeah, but I think the key is exactly that the competitiveness for both Sweden and Europe lies in the fossil-free energy system. Because that is cheaper, more resilient, and also, of course, creates a lot of opportunities and jobs for Sweden and Europe. So I think really keep the focus on that. So the message, I think, is really hold on to the climate targets and the policies that are in place, because companies, my member companies in the energy sector, but also the whole industry in Sweden, have taken the bet on those targets. And we are already transitioning. So, starting to feel insecure about where the targets are is the biggest threat, according to my members and my members' customers. So I think to hold on to that and really continue to build on that very advantageous position that Sweden has already with the 99% electricity-free electricity system and competitive prices. Because it's often said that Europe don't have a competitive electricity price, but in the Nordics and in Sweden we do, compared to the US and other continents. Here, we're ready for business.
Ready for business. That's kind of nice words to finish this conversation with you guys. Thank you so much for coming to Railers Play. Fredrik Nilsén, Head of Sustainability at Scania. Åsa Pettersson, CEO of Energiföretagen, and our own Malin Ljung-Eborn, Head of Sustainability at Railers. So nice to see you and hope to see you soon again, and keep on fighting.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching on Railers Play. See you soon. Bye-bye.